I didn't grow up with any wealth at all. The opposite. And we were always taught, like, if you want something, you have to work for it, period. Don't complain about your situation or your circumstances. You put your head down, you work, and you keep moving forward. And so that's kind of what I've applied to every film I've made and every job I do is, yeah, there's going to be days where everybody's complaining and you want to complain, but there will be an end to this at some point. So why not put your head down, do the work, stop complaining, and move on.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 137. In this episode, I speak with actor, writer, and producer Kipp Tribble. This was a phenomenal conversation. I can't wait for you to check it out. To watch this episode, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. To listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Kipp. Kipp Tribble, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This has been a long time in the making. This is,
Yeah.
I know Kenny's told me a lot about you.
Lies.
Was it all lies?
Lies.
So it's great to finally meet the infamous Kipp.
Oh,
Well, I met you before this, but
yes,
now we're really
briefly.
going to sit down.
Now we're really going to talk. Yeah.
How's everything going?
Good. Very good. Yeah. Beautiful day and glad to be here, man.
Yeah. And man, I usually build it up a little bit, but I just watched your film Before Never, which we're going to talk about. Incredible
Awesome.
work with that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. It was, as I know Kenny went into quite a bit, it was just a life-changing experience for all of us involved. And that goes with, for all the cast, for the crew. And we were a very small group, but mighty. And everybody came away changed, for the better. And it was one of those things where I think every single person involved in that film needed that project at that time in their life. And it all came together in this perfect way. And it's been a year and a half since we made that movie, and it's still hard to explain. Still hard to put a finger on exactly what that magic was.
It's really funny you say that, because when Kenny, about a year and a half ago, after he came on the podcast very shortly.
It was right after, right?
Right
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And he was saying how it was this incredible experience. Mm-hmm. And then when I watch him, I'm like, oh, I think I know what he's I'll never truly know, but
Yeah.
I told him I'll never accept food or drink from him ever again. And when people see the movie, they'll understand why.
Right.
But I said, boy, I'm like, you guys all went somewhere with that. So when you describe it like that, it sounds like, man, what a heck of a project.
And we can go into detail too about some of the other little small budget films that we've done. You're always so focused on doing everything, whether I write the script or someone else writes the script, or you're putting all the pieces together, you're crewing up, you're doing the budget, you're doing the schedule, you're figuring out catering. And there's usually 3 or 4 of you doing this. And by the time you get on set and realize, oh, I've got 6 pages of dialogue today, let me hurry through this and figure this out, because there's no one else left to carry the burden of the production. And so the acting portion, which is what we got into this business to do in the first place, gets pushed to the side and gets rushed through. And so you don't get to fully experience and enjoy the process. Before Never, we had, we started off with 9 people on that first day. We expanded a bit as people came and went and more characters were added. But there were 9 people. Everybody was equally shouldering the burden of the production. So when it came time for Kenny to be on camera, you go do that. Kenny is on camera. He doesn't have to worry about this or that or producing. This is his day. This is his time. Same thing with me, same thing with Derek or anyone else, or Liam, who was also producing. When it was time to be in front of the camera, everyone around that person allowed them to go do that. And it was really, truly the first time, and I've been doing this really long time, the first time truly that's ever happened, where you're allowed to do that and focus on performing, other than something I've just been cast in, that's totally different. But in making a film and putting all the pieces together. It's the first time that you were able to like, now I'm going to shift gears and not have to worry about producing it all. I don't have to worry about directing right now. All those sort of things just go away. It was awesome.
Do you think that's because you guys have now worked together on so many different things that you're able to have that luxury? Like probably that trust is there.
Yeah.
Because you guys have been in the trenches on other films.
For sure. The trust was definitely there. Like Derek and I have, we met in acting class in 1999. Known each other forever. My kids call him Uncle, so we're very tight, very close. Kenny and I have only known each other since 2019, but it feels like I've known him my entire life. We're best of friends. He's a brother to me. And in that time, Kenny and I have done 15 or 16 films together, in addition to a handful of other projects here and there that aren't film related. So it feels like we've been working together for 20 years, and bringing Derek and Kenny to the table. I knew I had that trust. Derek brought a bunch of people to the table. He brought Liam Nelligan, producer, to the table. Equally awesome. He's just an amazing human being. And that trust was there because Derek trusted him. And then Derek trusted Joanne, who played Wendy, but also handled production design and wardrobe and all of these elements, all these people we pulled together, we had that trust in those as well. But then that close working relationship that I've had with Kenny and then I've had with Derek, they had never worked together, but I knew that they would, get along and click immediately, which they did. And I do think that they're working together and kind of that shorthand that we have certainly allowed us to kind of release and let go and not have to worry about all those other elements.
Yeah, and I guess we'll just dive right into it then.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your background and everything like that, but I think for those listening and watching right now, they're like, but what are they talking about? Before Never, and I got to say this, I was watching the credits. Your name's in there a lot. Like you wrote it.
I did. I wrote the script. Yeah.
Okay, you wrote the script. You edited too.
I co-edited with Derek. Derek and I
You have one of the main parts in it, like a bunch of stuff. So can you take us through, like, how did you come up with this idea? And it's fantastic. It's a fantastic.
Yeah. So Dan Baccarini, who he's the executive producer of the film. And I've known Dan for probably 20 plus years. And we first were introduced to one another because he's a former Army investigator, criminal investigator. And he had this idea for a show, and we came close to selling it a few times. I wrote a pilot for it many, many years ago. And we almost sold a docu version of it. And he'd been wanting to make a film. He was involved a bit with Coffin 2, a film I did a few years ago. And he'd been wanting to make a small film. And so we were kicking around some ideas, started developing one. It just wasn't quite working. And I read a story about that film coming out at the time, the Blood and Honey, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie. And I was like, wow, how are they doing that? I mean, it's kind of a unique, odd spin, and started reading more about it. And they were talking about how it was in the public domain, and they got the idea, hey, let's do this, and turn it into a slasher movie. I'm not really a slasher movie kind of guy, but it was intriguing. And so I got the idea just to start looking up other public domain figures. And right at the time, Peter Pan was going into the public domain. It's 95 years after it was published. So didn't know really, we didn't have an approach, just knew that we could use Peter Pan and some of the characters from the original work, the original book and the original play. Can't touch the Disney version because, that was their own thing. They added their own element. So that was, I believe they did that one in the 50s. And I'd grown up a huge fan of Peter Pan because we didn't have a TV in our house, but I always had the records, the Disney records, and I listened to that Peter Pan one over and over and over. Was obsessed with it. And so started trying to come up with some ideas, played with a few things here and there, wanted to kind of go into the darker aspects of the book because the book's pretty dark. If you don't know the book, it's not a fun family fare. It's pretty dark. So I wanted to capture that, but also put a twist on it and do something completely different, which that involved taking the children and making them all adults. but also doing this, setting everything before they go to Neverland. I was really focused on doing something that was before they went to Neverland, because we didn't want to do like a rip off of Hook and do something after they'd already gone to Neverland. So just kicking around ideas with Dan, and then Derek started coming up with just different ideas of a kidnapping, because that is what Peter Pan does in the book, and his obsession with Wendy. So it naturally made sense that Wendy would be kidnapped. But we also didn't want to do the traditional Hook as the main villain, or Peter as the hero, or Peter as this dark character at first, or Hook as, kind of this one-dimensional, kind of always growling and grumpy dude. So that's where all the other pieces started dropping in. So approached it as a thriller, and writing a thriller first, and then dropping these characters, all of them in there. The Darling family, Jonathan, Michael, Wendy, Mr. and Mrs. Darling are in there. Smee's in there. Starkey, who you see for a brief moment, who is played by Dan, our executive producer. He's one of the minor characters in the book. So peppering this thriller with those characters then allowed us to pull pieces from the book, all these Easter eggs that are throughout the film, and drop them in certain lines are directly from the book. Certain things that they do are directly from the book. And then also tie everything in to this nautical theme as well, even though they're not like on the water or pirates or anything yet. We wanted to drop those, foreshadowing eggs in there, so to speak. So, Smee always is tying a rope, and a sailor's knot. You probably see all the decor in the houses. There's, netting and different things like that, which conveniently was already there. And then even when Hook and Smee kind of have their drunken night, they're sitting in a little canoe, little things like that. We wanted to drop all those elements in there. So the script was written first as a thriller with all those characters in there, then going back through saying, all right, where can we put all of these Peter Pan book elements and play elements in there? And that's how that came together. And then I'm a huge fan of twist endings. And that's where the twist came from, because I for some reason can't write without writing a twist. I don't know why.
There's definitely a twist.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but
right.
it leaves you thinking like, well, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy?
And that's exactly what we wanted, for sure.
It was a different perspective switch. Kind of like, I don't know if you saw Wicked at all.
Yeah.
Kind of like at the end, you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought that.
Yep, 100%. And that's exactly what we wanted to play
Brilliant.
with. And we wanted to leave some open-endedness to it, and a couple of feedback we got from some people who read the scripts like, well, you've got to, but you didn't end it. Like they're going to do this at the end. And like, yeah, that we're leaving it open-ended for a reason. So yeah, that's how the whole thing came together.
And yeah, you did. I did. I've talked to Kenny today, and I said, yeah, you guys. It wasn't like in your face, like making it obvious. Hey guys, now we're doing this. Remember this? And Peter, it was you had to pay attention. But I'm like, oh yeah, that's that from the from one of the movies or whatever it was. So it was very nice how you guys did that, and that gradual build up. Yeah,
just little pieces, like I said, just breadcrumbs along the way, Easter eggs, and trying to figure out how do we have a sword fight between Pan and Hook, and not giving anything away, but Pan runs the tree house, which is a halfway house for guys trying to get back on their feet, and that was Liam's idea, because we had this great location, and we were trying to figure out how to best use it. And that was Liam's idea. He threw in there, well, how about make it a halfway house? And Pan runs a halfway house. And Derek's like, yeah, we call it the tree house. And that's how those things came together, which the tree house is heavily tied in to every version of Peter Pan. But it just fit naturally. Like you said, we didn't want to be in your face with it.
Right. And you guys shot this, it was shot in Cape Cod?
Cape Cod. Yeah, completely in Cape Cod.
So did you know, when you had written this, did you know you'd be able to go to Cape Cod to shoot this, or is it you wrote it and then you searched?
Not at first. At first, it was kind of midway through the scripting process that we knew for sure we'd be able to go to Cape Cod. It was kind of vague as like the settings and, just kind of roughing in the story. There was at one point we were even talking about figuring out something, being able to shoot it in New York City because a lot of, Liam and Derek are there. Some of our other key players were there. But then when Liam was like, for sure, like, hey, yeah, we got these 3 locations or 4 locations actually, in Cape Cod, it was like, boom, perfect. And we just rearranged some stuff in the script and it all worked great.
And it goes with that, like, marina type theme or, the boats and the.
Like I said, all of that nautical stuff is there they are there in the houses.
Ship in the bottle.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So what was that like? Because you were stellar. Like all of you were stellar. Like in your role, again, not giving anything away, but man, there's some moments. You mentioned the drunk scene with you and Shmi.
Yeah.
But there's another scine with you and Shmi where you tell Shmi what you really think.
I dress him down a bit.
Yeah. And you leave like, geez. So could you talk about the preparation that you did as an actor for that? I know you guys are all wearing multiple hats, but when you did get that freedom, like, okay, now I can just worry about the acting.
Yeah. Part. Generally how it kind of worked on our set was, we knew who was up first the next day, especially anybody who had a meaty scene like that. We would just kind of leave them alone and let them stay in their room and do their thing. And preparation wise, like I said, I mean, Derek's a brother of mine, and it's, we've never, I don't think we've ever really argued ever, just kind of like maybe debated something and but never really argued. So, I finally got to tell him what I thought of him. No, as far as preparation, I focused on, like we were all taught and trained as actors, that this is, this person is not to blame. That actually is not to blame for all the weight that I'm carrying. So there's so many different, I'm not giving anything away, but Hook's lost his wife. Like his wife has disappeared. And he's grieving and he's angry and he's angry at Pan for certain reasons. And he's angry at so many different things in the world that are beyond his control. But Smee, his best friend, is the one he's channeling all of this anger into at that moment. And it's really not about Smee. It's not about him not living up to James's expectations. It's he just happens to be the innocent bystander who's taken the brunt of everything from Hook at that moment. And sure, a couple of the things he says to Smee, he might feel, but it's truly about all this other shit that he's just hitting Smee with. And so I focused on doing that as opposed to coming at Smee as a person. I focused on channeling all of that, those burdens on someone that, cut you off in traffic but you're angry at, this person you just had an argument with. And so you're honking the horn, screaming and flipping them off. That sort of element is what I focused on.
Shmi caught you on the wrong day.
Yeah, man. Wrong day.
And you can't help but feel for Shmi.
I know. So, it's funny when we were editing, because people will see it when they see the film, but after that moment and Shmi's standing there by himself, all alone, we played the Charlie Brown. We played that a couple times in there, which was kind of funny.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. Obviously, it's not in the film, but.
How many days did you guys do that? Like getting to Cape Cod, wrap up? Like what?
So we arrived in Cape Cod. I want to say November 2nd, and we pulled out of town on November 21st. I don't remember any numbers other than dates. I for some reason can remember dates, but with 9 shooting days with like a 10th like kind of pickup day, which was our first day, kind of easing into stuff. Yeah, we knocked it out pretty quickly.
Oh, and that's what's so impressive, because we'll talk about some of the other projects that I've seen that you guys have done. Like you guys have that down, man. Like you guys, I'm sure you have systems in place, and you guys know how to go make not just a film, feature films.
Yeah, and it's not ideal. It's usually the nature of not having enough money to shoot more days, or something's not available, or whatever. It's doable, and I always tell people it's doable. And to this day, people will say, "Hey, we only have this much money," and we're thinking, we want to do this feature. I'm like, great. And they're like, yeah, so we'll probably shoot for 3 weeks. I'm like, well, no, you won't. Actually, you're going to shoot in 1 week because you don't have the money to cover 3 weeks worth of crew. And when people start typing it in and figuring out, putting in the spreadsheet and realizing, oh yeah, we can't afford to do it that long. Unfortunately, we've had to do so many like that, lower budget, but I have more fun on those lower budget ones because everybody, you're a family. You all come together for the same purpose. There's no money to be had, and you're there to make the project that you all agreed to make. Whereas when you get on the bigger ones, most people are there just for a job. You've got a handful of people who are there to make this project they believe in. Everyone's there for a job. They know there's probably some extra money to pay for something if like they need another day. So the the love of it and is kind of not there. The indie spirit is just something that I love, in the small films. Now, again, of course I like getting paid and I like having more time, but yeah, I have more fun on those.
That's a great point. Cause, yeah, you're right. Like when there are bigger budgets, people, they can feel like, oh, well, they got the money. We don't have to go as hard at this, or we can take our time.
There's a lack of care.
But I was going to add to that too. I'm sure you guys have just gotten better from being in those environments, because when you're working with less, you're forced to grow in other ways. So
yes,
when you guys do get those bigger and bigger budgets, you're going to be able to stretch those even more now too, because now well, hey, we know what we can do with this smaller amount.
Yes.
So if you give us a bigger amount, if you would have given it to us maybe in the beginning, maybe we would have wasted some of it. But now we know where every dollar goes. So that's valuable.
Exactly. And to your point, there was a film I did at the end of last year, and it was a several $1 million film with fairly large names in it. And the director had, he was used to shooting some of these projects really quickly, 8, 9, 10 days. And we didn't have a really long schedule, but we had, more than we have on some of these. And there were, I would say, probably 4 or 5 days where we were sitting around for an hour or two because we'd already finished, and we were just like, no, what do we do? What do we shoot? Because we already the machine was doing this, and the DP that we had and some of the other crew we had on these smaller ones, well, they're used to flying. The toys might be bigger, the scope might be bigger, the names might be bigger, but the way they work is the same. And so, yeah, there were times where we were like, well, we got 2 hours of lunch and we don't have anything else to shoot right now. Or, well, we're wrapping up, a 9-hour day. So yes, it does come in handy when you have those people who are used to making quality stuff at such a fast pace.
You make me want to go search public domains now and see what's, I wonder what
There's
else
a few. So Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, interesting.
And in, I want to say 11 years, Batman and Superman.
Oh,
yeah. Was that, was there any risk to that? Cause were you nervous? Oh, are we overstepping the lines for public domain? I imagine there'd be someone where what does that even mean? What's free? Is there certain things I can't say? Was that stressful, or what was that process?
A little bit. So I definitely spent some time researching it, and there is a children's hospital that J.M. Barrie left his rights to, when he passed away, the Peter Pan rights. And I believe it was 88. It was sometime in the 80s. The Prime Minister gave the rights only in the UK to that hospital in perpetuity. They can enforce royalties only in the UK, but they have no say in what you do with it, anything that happens with Peter Pan. But then it gets tricky because you've probably seen the Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse stuff that's coming out now, the slasher movies. So Steamboat Willie was the first version of Mickey Mouse. They can use that, but they can't use a version of 1950 Mickey Mouse or something else Mickey Mouse was in. So it has to be 95 years from the very first publication of that specific character. So we would not have been able to have Captain Hook, dressed like he is in the Disney films, or whatever that would be from or sing a song from the Disney movies or anything like that. We couldn't do that. So I called the Children's Hospital, emailed them, and then they put me in touch with their agent, had a couple Zooms with their agent. They reiterated exactly what I just told you. And they're like, as long as it's in that, that first couple books now, and that play, you're good to go.
Yeah, so, I'd have been like calling them, like making sure, like, 'cause that'd be the terrible. You get finished,
exactly.
like, nah, you can't do any of that.
Yeah, so I triple checked that, and then told them that, yeah, once we have the film out there, then we'll take care of the UK side of the royalties. But they've been great. Honestly, they've been awesome to work with, and I'm sure if it was a massive blockbuster film, they'd probably be maybe treating us a little differently, like, oh yeah, our percentage is 50% or something like that. But they, I was upfront with them that we're a small film, and but yeah, they were really great. Really good to work with.
We live in the age of the internet, and
yes.
I'm hoping for you guys that spreads quickly once it is out.
yeah, we are too, and there are definitely going to be some Peter Pan fans out there who are loyal to this, and there's several Facebook groups that are just rabid Peter Pan fans, which I imagine we'll catch a little flack from, just because we did our own thing, and but it is what it is.
And it's almost like, I almost feel like you're catching lightning in a bottle in a way, because you have, I want to get to your background here, but like, you have all this experience, then you and Kenny and all the projects you guys do. Now there's this moment where like, oh, this became public domain. So like, you immediately, oh, I know what to do. You know what I mean? Right. Like, and like, not just do it, you did it very well. Like, you wrote a great script. Like, that's what I kept thinking too, is so creative. How you did that, and I'm like, this is like awesome. Like,
I write thrillers more than I write anything, and so that's how I approached that aspect. But it really, really helped when you already have the names of the characters, and you kind of know their relationships and their dynamics from original source material. And I'd never written anything from source material before. Really helps when you have that. And then great ideas from, Derek and Dan have story credit on this. They threw in a bunch of great ideas, and then bouncing some things off of Kenny and Liam as well. That was all really, really helpful. And it just from the beginning of this project to the end, it's just been an incredible experience.
So I know I may not be able to say too much on it yet, but what can people expect here, possibly being able to see it time frame wise?
So we were very close to closing a deal for distribution. Hopefully we'll know something by the end of this week. And that would mean, we'd start delivery process, which any filmmaker knows is a nightmare. But delivery is, it's basically getting all your ducks in a row. You gotta deliver technically, and all this paper delivery and all this kind of stuff, and make sure all the T's are crossed and I's dotted and all that kind of stuff. So we'd have to go through that, and then generally from there, depending on it, unless they had a different strategy, you're looking at 3 to 6 months of it being released. So probably, I would say maybe fall of this year.
All right, so 2025.
It should be out this year. We don't have anything set yet. That'll start to shape up after we start delivery and they start letting us know.
No, I'm excited for you guys, because there's nothing like this, like nothing at all. So it's I don't know if this relates completely, but I was having a talk with somebody, because sometimes you see Hollywood and it's like, why are they remaking that? Like, it was great. This is my opinion. I guess they're remaking American Psycho, and I'm just like, come on, like Christian Bale, like who's gonna right? But anyway, but I realized when it came to like superhero movies, because they're coming out with another Superman.
Yeah.
And my first reaction was like, guys, you already, but then I'm like, I saw the trailer. I'm like, that's pretty badass. Like, that's pretty, I'm going to go see that movie. But I'm like, I realize I'm okay with those types of things. And I'm relating it to like the Peter Pan story, these infamous stories, like the Batman story, like Bruce Wayne, like what happens with that? It's been told over and over again, but I'm okay like watching these new interpretations, like Heath Ledger Joker, Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Yeah. They both did a stellar job. They both had different takes. So taking a story like Peter Pan that's so in so many of our childhoods and seeing you do this spin to it, it was really neat. And there was that just familiarity with it. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember, Shmi and Hook and like the Lost Boy, like all that. So yeah, it was interesting.
And I'm a fan of the prequels and origin stories of some of these films that are out. And we wanted to take that approach, but at the same time, like we don't have children in this movie, you know, so how do we address that? And that's why we just kind of did our own, it's an alt version of the origin story of Pan and Hook, you know, and we were sitting there, man, I think we were probably only had about 3 or 4 days left of shooting. And I think Kenny was prepping for his day on camera. And we all get a text from him, and he came up with a great tagline that we're going to use for the poster. It's like, before they were Pan and Hook, they were Peter and James. And it was perfect. Just like encapsulated everything right there, you know. And we do address it a bit, you know, when Hook is sitting there talking to Pan at the kitchen table, and they talk about legacies and how stories are twisted and changed over 100 years. So we did want to address a little bit that we're acknowledging that people think of this story as this whole other thing and this flying boy and all that kind of stuff without, you know, really hammering it through. So we just mention it just enough.
It's funny you say that, because I told Kenny, I'm like, you know, this is one of those where you're going to have to watch it a few times, because you're probably going to pick something up new every time. So, I mean, before we move on from this, what's the biggest takeaway you took from this project? Well, I know you talked about like the experience of it, but what did you learn the most doing this one?
The right people all meshing together is the only way to have that experience. And it, you know, had we just had one person to kind of not fit into the group or be doing their own thing or just a clash of personality, I don't think the experience would have been the same for all of us. So it's about getting everybody on the project at the same time who truly are there for the right reason. And that's really, really hard to get. Even on, you know, low, tiny budget stuff, it's really hard to get that. Everybody across the board. I think that's probably, you know, we kind of knew that, but we'd never experienced it. And in that, when everybody's experience is the same thing, you have this incredible spiritual experience together. And like I said, everyone needed this project at this point in their lives. So if you can put the right people together at the right time, and catching lightning in a bottle there, you know, it's really, really tough to do. But that is truly the only way to kind of replicate this, because we've talked about this before. We're never going to be able to replicate this, are we? Like I've done 4 films since then. It hasn't even been close to the same. And I had to like talk to myself going into that first film after this. I did a film in January. You know, we shot that one in November, and I did one the following January. And I had to like pull myself back a little bit and realizing I wasn't going to have that same experience. But it truly is about getting the right people together, like-minded people, finding your group, your tribe, so to speak, you know.
And it kind of goes to what you were saying too on the bigger projects, where some people are like, this is just a gig.
Yeah.
This is just a job. And when you have that mindset, that's how you're going
to
act.
100%. Yeah.
You know? I love that. So going back, how did you get into all this?
Oh gosh.
Because you've done a lot of stuff. Kentucky, right?
Kentucky. I was born in a cornfield in Kentucky.
Go Wildcats.
Go Wildcats, man. I love what happened this year, and we're building a good program. Anyway, I'll go on for an hour about that. So yeah, I'm from Kentucky. I moved to South Carolina when I was a teenager, early teens, and went to a very religious school. Grew up in a very religious household. Like I said, did not have a TV in the house growing up. So all of my, you know, entertainment was, you know, records. And, you know, I still to this day will listen to the old radio dramas from, you know, the 30s and 40s, because that's all I had to kind of, you know, growing up to kind of entertain myself. And so when I was a sophomore in high school, my my best friend and I, he decided he wanted to go try out for a play at school, and so I went with him and tried out and got it. And as soon as I started getting some laughs on stage, I was like, "Well, this is awesome. This is great." But still, never thought that it was going to be viable to do that as a career. And so when I got out of high school, got into college, got into radio, big sports fan, got into sports broadcasting. So I was in radio for almost 4 years. And during that time, I was also doing local theater and plays. And, that's what I thought I was going to do. I was going to be in radio, but I love movies, love performing, but never felt like I had that permission from, the institution I grew up in to, hey, go pursue that, go do that. Never thought about it. And then this is definitely dating myself. So this is when, Ed Burns came out with Brothers of McMullen, and Kevin Smith came out with Clerks, and, Linklater had done Dazed and Confused a bit before then. It was that really gritty indie wave that was hitting the town. And El Mariachi, of course. So I would always go to the local bookstore every weekend. I would pick up the latest screenwriting book, latest acting book. Even though I wasn't thinking about doing it, I clearly was obsessed with it. And so when I read Robert Rodriguez's book, Rebel Without a Crew, and I read it literally sitting there at the radio station. I was, scrolling through every weekend, just reading. And that's when it hit me. I could do this. Like, this guy did it for like $7,000. Like, I think I could do this. Now, mind you, I'd never picked up a film camera. I took an 8mm class in school, and, was terrible at it. Knew nothing about filmmaking other than the books I'd read. So I ordered 6 screenplays back then. Now you can just download screenplays for free. Back then you had to order them, and they would mail them to you a couple weeks later. So I ordered 6 screenplays, different genres, to try to just study them. And from that, got a couple other friends locally, who were actors as well, did plays with them, and kind of pitched them on the idea. They're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And not sure if everybody really believed we were actually going to do it. And so we started working on a script. Had the script finished. Me and one of the other guys wrote the script. And then I went to a state senator that I was working for at the time. And I was like, hey, I've got this idea to do a film. Do you know anybody who'd want to invest? And he's like, oh, maybe, and I wrote up some stuff, and it was a really terrible pitch deck, what we'd call a pitch deck, but then it was just like some papers, and pitched it to him. And his business partners like, yeah, so if you know anyone, let me know. Could do this for, just a couple bucks. And he called me the next day, and he said, yeah, we want to do it. So that's how I got my first film financed. And so then I had to figure out how to make a film. and so we just started doing the research. And this was, before you could look this stuff up online. So it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of asking questions. Was able to find out where we could rent a camera. Had to drive 100 miles to go pick it up. Picked it up, opened the case, and got sick to my stomach because I realized I don't even know how to put this together. We don't have a DP. We ordered some film that they say will fit in this camera. I don't know how all these pieces fit together. So we did have a guy who was a local photographer that we knew, and he came over an hour before he started shooting and showed us how to put the camera together. Took me into this, the dark room, which was basically just a room with bags over the windows, and showed me how to put my hands in the film bag to change the film. And that's how we shot the movie.
That happened an hour before
An hour before we started shooting. So we never had a DP. I had a light meter, which I didn't know how to read. So we were just like kind of winging it. And we had literally like one light, which is like was Home Depot or something. And one of the guys brought a light from his living room. That's how we made the movie. Now, I should add, if that movie was made today, it would never, ever see the light of day. It would never get made. I mean, it would never get distributed. But back then, you could make these really gritty, rough looking movies. If it had some action set pieces in it, then you could sell it in the foreign market. And so, then we were able to get the movie pieced together. We had our investor knew a local videographer who edited the movie for us, got all that put together. Me and my buddy jumped in the car, drove cross country to LA with 25 VHS tapes and put our suits on. We had, first of all, we rented a screening room at the AMC in Woodland Hills because we knew nothing about LA. And we're like, why aren't all these people coming to see this at 10 a.m. on a Monday? It's Woodland Hills. That's why nobody. But we did have like 5 people show up, and 3 stayed. Like two of them ended up leaving. 3 stayed, and 2 of them gave me their cards at the end, and one of them ended up being the distributor of the film. So, but anyway, we were just knocking on doors. We didn't know any better. We'd go in CAA and be like, yeah, hey, we've got this VHS, and and not realizing that not everyone dresses in like suits and ties when they go to meetings and stuff like that. So yeah, from that, we got a sales agent, and they were, just over in Studio City, and took the film, sold it worldwide, made almost triple what the budget was. And that kind of catapulted me onto the next film I did, which was a film we shot up in Vermont. But it was that distributor knew those guys up in Vermont that made several films, and they were looking for another producer to come on to also bring in a couple bucks if they could, and just come and just be an extra set of hands or whatever. And so they gave me a role. I got to produce on that and got to see how how a real set works and runs. And that's where I truly learned, an AD does this. And, when you're producing, you do this. And script supervisor, what? And, that's where I truly learned everything, was on that set. And then after that, it was about another year went by, did some more plays, and decided it was time to move out here. So yeah, funny story, if I may.
Yes, please.
So out of those 25 VHS tapes that we brought out here
on the first movie,
dropped them all off. It was Cinco de Mayo. I'm almost certain it was 2001 because I kept saying it was 5 years later. So it was almost exactly 5 years after we passed those out. A friend of mine invited me and my wife to a Cinco de Mayo party. He didn't know the people. A mutual friend invited him. So we get there, knowing no one. We're walking around. There's like 100 people there. And there's just stacks and stacks of VHS tapes through this house. And the guy was like in post-production or something, just all these VHS tapes. So I'm walking by, and I stop, and I'm talking to someone, and I just happen to look over, and eye level, there's a blank like sticker over one, but underneath I can see it's our film. I was like, no, I'm not seeing that. So I pull it off and I peel it back, and it's one of those 25 original cassette tapes that we passed out 5 years before. So I'm like, oh my God, like, how is this possible? So I go to the guy who lives there, and I was like, this, and I explained the whole thing. He didn't think it was a big deal. He's just like, I don't know. I worked a bunch of post places. We get a bunch of VHS tapes. They wipe them, and then we use them for whatever. I don't know. And he like didn't seem like it was a big deal. I'm like, it's just 5 years ago, South Carolina. I drove here, and anyway, it was a total crazy coincidence.
And that was here in LA.
That was here in LA. Yeah.
Was it wiped?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I don't blame him. I mean, it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie.
But you made money on your first movie.
Made money on that. Yeah.
Not many people can say that. Like,
yeah, I mean, yes, that's true. That's true. I mean, it's such a rough movie. And that's why I said, if it was made today or any time in the last 20 years, it would not have made that. But it was the right time. But I was inspired by those guys, who had made those movies before me. And that's what prompted me to do it. And that's when I was making that movie, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
When you're describing them, I want to keep going with your timeline here, but I always say like, man, like the 90s, early 2000s must have been like, I don't know if the heyday is the right word, but such an amazing time for like movies. And like you named like the Clerks and the indie films, and even even like Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs, like that era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, do you miss that? Do you miss that time? Like, especially I know we have all this technology now, but like when you're talking about, you can't Google this. No, we got to figure this out. And the equipment was different. It just seemed that there was a more of like a purity to the whole thing.
Yes. I miss it so much. And it's, yes. Is it easier to make a film now? Absolutely. Cause you can right here, I've made a feature on an iPhone, you can do that, and you can edit on free software. You don't need like a massive, the room that just fits your massive editing system in it. Pop open your laptop. You can do that now. It's easy. That's part of the problem, is that now there's so many people doing that, which it saturates the indie market so much. And so indie films, those little indie darlings that would come out with blood, sweat, and tears in them, people would pay attention because there was just a few people who would really, really like struggle and put that thing together and figure out how to put a camera together an hour before you started shooting, that sort of stuff. Now people will go and do that and crank it out, and it'll be out on YouTube or something in a couple months. And it kind of dilutes the whole experience, I think. So
I think there is such thing, I don't want to derail us too much, but oversaturation in a way. And I think it's great. I mean, if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, like putting content out and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now it's like, hey, we live in a time where anyone can put stuff out. And then you pause. Oh, we live in a time where anyone can put stuff out.
Anyone can put stuff out. Exactly.
And it does, even when you do, I do believe the good rises to the top, but sometimes it may take way longer, or it's going to be it's like needle in a haystack.
Absolutely.
Algorithms and all that stuff. Like
for sure. And it's harder now to get noticed from a film than it used to be then. Like, so back then, one of those 25 VHS tapes that I passed out was to Miramax. And I still kept in contact with that guy from Miramax for probably 6-7 years. Went and saw him when I moved out here. He would call me, be like, "You got anything else going?" Like, it wasn't for them for many reasons, but he kept in contact. It's hard to do that today with a film that, hey, we made this for a couple bucks and it's low budget and micro budget, and here's what it is, and they're gonna be like, yeah, you and 100,000 other people did this year. So I think it is harder to kind of break in with a film now than it used to be, for sure.
Whereas like back when the days you're talking, sure, it was hard. Yeah, it was super expensive, but that probably separated a lot of people. It separated the people who really, really, really wanted to do it, and the people like, I'm not even going to attempt that.
And that also goes a little bit of what I was saying of getting the right team together, because not many people were down for that kind of hard work and that much dedication to put a film together back then. Now, it's quicker schedule because you can move faster, and you still get people that kind of fall off, after about a week, and like, well, I thought this was going to be fun. No, it's hard work. It's really, really hard. And it can be very boring. But yeah, it's making sure, you get that right team. But yes, back then it was really difficult to make a film. And that's why there were fewer of them, because it was harder to get those teams together to do that. So
you moved to LA.
Yeah, I moved to LA.
So how was that, your initial LA years?
Oh man. So I immediately went to acting class. That's where I met Derek Wingo. And then, we've been tight for, almost 26 years now. And, moved in late summer, 99. Yeah, man, I was so sheltered growing up, so, I mean, it was a little, it was different, coming from Kentucky, then to South Carolina, then to one of the largest cities in the world. So it was an experience for sure, but it helped that I, got into acting class right away, was around a lot of creatives, and actually a guy in the acting class there had, I'd known him previously because he had lived in South Carolina for a bit. So that was my contact here. And he knew a guy who wanted to finance a film for his girlfriend at the time. And so I got a film pretty quickly after I got here to LA. I mean, we were shooting that film almost a year exactly than when I rolled into LA. So did that one, went to Chicago, shot that for a few months. And that was my first year in LA. And then things started slowing down a bit. And then it's like, oh, it's not going to be this way. I'm not going to just have a new film, indie film every year. And, I'm not going to book every audition that I go out on, So then reality started setting in just a bit, and we started having kids. So my wife and I had 3 kids within 3.5 years of each other. So that slowed things down a bit. I did an indie film with Derek and Elisa Nixon, who plays Belle in Before Never. We did that in 2003. So I did do a small, it was like 3 couples at a cabin, for the weekend sort of thing, a big chill sort of ish. And did that movie, did a couple other smaller ones, but then really was kind of stalled for a bit until kids started getting a little bit older, had a little bit more freedom to be able to go and work a little bit more. And in 2010, that's when I wrote Coffin. And it's a film I did with Kevin Sorbo, Bruce Davison from X-Men, and a guy named Dr. Spencer Johnson from Baltimore. Same thing. He wanted to finance a film, wanted to get into film. He had done one previously that I was involved in producing for him remotely. And he flew out here, wanted to have a meeting about it. So I pitched him this idea for Coffin, which became Coffin. And then Derek and I co-directed it. We both starred in it, produced it, and then it was picked up by Redbox. And so that was the start of things picking back up again. And Redbox premiered it, did really well, did a sequel. And things started taking off a little bit more, but as it usually does in this industry, like it does this. But then 2017, when I did Coffin 2, 2016 we shot it. 2017 it came out on Redbox. And then things really, really started taking off. And since then I'm probably at 25 to 30 features since then. Yeah, it's been
a lot of features.
Yeah. So I'm the reason that things are oversaturated.
So you're the one that's been flooding the market.
It's me.
I'm sorry, Kevin Sorbo. He's the guy that played Hercules.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. But was he in the second one too?
He was not. No. Second one, we had a guy named Robert Mukes, who's Rufus Jr. in House of Thousand Corpses, big old giant dude, but he's a teddy bear at heart. He's in that, and then we brought back some of the original cast, and Redbox picks it up again.
Is Redbox still doing?
No, they're done. I've had 3 films released through Redbox, and they were really good people, and it's just there's some mismanagement after they got taken over, and they're gone.
Well, and I just think the streaming too. Probably.
Yeah, they tried to get into the streaming game, but they were a little late on that, I think, and they still tried to cling to those DVDs, and they just. Yeah.
You seem like the perfect person to ask this for. So there's this clip out there of Matt Damon explaining what's really hurt the financial part of the film industry. And he said streaming because, and you'll know way better than me, because he goes, they used to really bank on those DVD sales after a movie would come out. Yeah, you'd have the box office and all that, but we're going to make maybe half the money too off these DVDs 100%. Or Blu-rays. So that's accurate.
100%. So how it used to work for me is my bread and butter was the foreign market. You didn't even worry about domestic deal because you could go and sell South Korea for 20 grand. You could sell Germany for 100 grand or, whatever. You could sell off pieces and you could do really well with these low budget movies because not all the countries, but some of the countries were a little bit behind where we were in the US. So, say Vietnam, for instance, US would already be on DVDs. They're still on VHS. And then they finally got the DVDs. So once it switched over to DVDs, then DVD was the bread and butter, like Redbox deals, sell them in Walmart. So it was like was a really good revenue stream, and you could count on that. And then streaming, we all thought it was going to be this incredible savior for all of us. This is, everything's equal now. Put it out there. Millions of people are going to have access to it. Millions of people are going to watch it. And it did the opposite, because there's so much now in streaming that really only the big boys get all of the attention because they have the marketing dollars. But now you're up there, but now you don't have the DVD revenue anymore. You don't have a lot of the foreign market revenue anymore, because all of those countries have caught up. They all have streaming services, and they want to do a revenue share. So revenue share is you put your film up there, and then they're like, great, we're going to split this with you 50-50, depending on how it does. It's really hard to track that when they're not buying DVDs from you in a bundle up front. How are you going to track that? So then the other problem is you have like Amazon, Netflix, all of them are worldwide now. And most of them are, and so if you put it on Amazon in the US, you'll sign a deal where they'll put it out worldwide. So now that takes away Thailand, the Philippines, Australia, because Amazon has it. So they're like, great, I'm just going to go on and watch it for free on Amazon. Why would I buy your movie for anything? Like I have no use for it. And some of those streamers will still get it, but now instead of 20,000, it's 5,000 is the big one, or $500 instead of, 5,000. So yeah, it's hurt. It's hurt a lot. And I don't know if there's anything that's going to change that.
That was going to be my follow-up. Like, what do you think? Do you think they're going to make adjustments, or what do you think the future is?
I mean, I know the studios are trying to figure out something to make adjustments, and there's still this big push for theatrical, of course. And everybody pushing, trying to get theaters back, but it just doesn't seem to be happening.
It's almost like too during COVID, because we were all shut inside, like boom for streaming and all that, social media, all that stuff. And now that people are used to that, it's like the people that went for remote work too. It's like, well, I don't want to go back to the office. We're like, I don't want to go to a movie theater. Like I've got it right here on my TV. Why do I need?
And I don't know how you are with streaming, but I find I watch way less movies now than I used to. Like I used to watch probably a movie every night, and on the weekends, 3 or 4 movies. And there's somebody was telling me about there's a study that if you have like 50 ice cream options when you walk in an ice cream store, there's so much that you sometimes will just go and pick vanilla or chocolate, or it's 2 or 1. Some people actually just left, and I forget what the study was. It's kind of that way with streaming, that you scroll and you scroll and you scroll. It is for me at least, and then I'll end up watching something I've seen before because there's too many choices. And cable, which, was what it was, but at least they limited your choice to what was on at the time. And now we're kind of going back to cable because, they're consolidating streamers and they're putting ads on things, even though you pay for no ads. And we're just kind of going back to that anyway.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's funny you said that. I just read something. Yeah, like I can't remember what the item was. But they said, if you put multiple items for sale on a table, it won't sell as much. But if you said, no, you only have 3 options, then you sell a ton of it.
Yeah.
It is like a psychological.
Totally.
I always talk about the Cheesecake Factory. When you go to Cheesecake Factory, it's like, I always get the same thing because there's like 1,000 different things. It's like, I know I like that.
Yeah. It's like, it's a novel. You're in a Cheesecake Factory. Exactly. No, 100%.
Yeah. So that's interesting having you break all that down.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when it started, like, it was kind of 2021 when I started really noticing these lower budget movies that I always could count on the money from. Started slowly doing that every quarter or every month or whatever. And we did, I kind of went through an experimental period kind of right before COVID, and just continued it through there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bounce into a bigger budget film. I'm going to produce this, be in this, and then I'm going to go do a really small film. And Eric was involved in one of those small films that we did. And I did sound for us. We did in 4 days. It was one of the first movies approved to be shot during COVID in LA. And we shot the whole thing in 4 days.
What was that experience like? Especially like coming with probably the thing looming in your head about COVID. Like we didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. So that was the first thing we did is like, all right, so how do we ensure that we're all going to be safe? So we all like quarantined at this house, basically at this house, and just stayed there for 4 days. But we got the testing beforehand. We did testing, a couple of times during, and we kept it to 4 days because I think at the time there was a limit on how many days you could go without stopping down and doing like a full lab test again. And we just couldn't afford it because we didn't have any money. And it was also experimental because, I wrote it was like 45-page script, but almost all the dialogue, except for 3 different characters, I left it up to the actors. I was like, here's what you need to say during this time, the points you need to get across, but I want you guys to put your own spin on it. So it was, it was an experiment. We had 2 cameras going. Kenny is the DP and producing and one of the leads in the movie, which was crazy. I mean, Eric remembers he would like sit there and he would frame it up and do this, and he would talk to the camera guys, and he would like, throw the camera off his neck, and he'd go in front, stand there and do his line stuff. And he was great. But that was also the first time Kenny and I had worked together twice before then as producers and actors, but we had never fully like worked side by side as a team from the ground up to do something that was just ours.
So you met from different projects.
We met from different projects.
That you two didn't come together.
Yeah. So we met on Reboot Camp, which we shot in 2019. And I was a producer on the film. I have a small part in the film. And this guy had brought Kenny in, and he kept saying, "Oh, this guy, he's also an actor, but he's really great. He'll fit in. He'll do whatever you want to do." And I believe we brought him in as like second AD. And just from the beginning, I'm like, who is this crazy guy? Who is this like ball of energy? And yeah, we just really hit it off, and then did another movie together. I called him up a couple months later, and we had to do another movie right before COVID was starting. And we actually we had 2 days left when the shutdown happened on that movie. So we cleared everybody out except 10 people because we were allowed to have 10 people together, and we finished the movie the last 2 days. So that's how, Kenny and I met our first 2 films. And then so Evil at the Door was the third one, but the one that, he did the sound mix for and the color for, and I edited. And so it was the first time that we really, truly from the ground up worked on a film together. But yeah, 4 days was, it was crazy. I mean, we didn't do anything super complicated, and it was designed where, there's a girl that's hiding under the bed for like 75% of the movie, and we shot all her stuff in like 1 hour. And we just put, 2 cameras, talked her through the entire script. Here's your reaction. Here's what you're doing. Boom. Move the cameras here, do the same thing. Move over here, same thing. Got through all of her stuff in like an hour, but we cut to her a lot. So that really saved us some time. And being able to do that. But we were at one location the whole time, and mainly kind of in 1 or 2 rooms the whole time.
Was there much sleep in those 4 days?
No, not much.
They were night shoots.
Yeah, they were all night shoots. So we were trying to sleep during the day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so was it during the pandemic? Did you guys just say like, we need to do something? Like did you know that they were going to be starting to greenlight stuff again?
So I kept track of that a bit. And, I was just kind of looking for the next thing, and I had a couple of low budget things that were doing pretty well at the time. I was like, well, great, let's crank out another really low budget one, and let's see how we can do that. And COVID might go on and on and on. We're not sure how long it's going to last. What can we do? And so that's where the concept of like someone hiding under the bed, or, and it's a home invasion. So we're all in this one area the whole time. And that's where that came from, to, figure out how we could produce something, during crazy times.
Nuts. It's crazy. Like it was long ago, but it wasn't long ago. Like,
I know.
5 years now.
And it really has just erased all concept I have of time. I
think we're still stuck in like some time loop, time warp.
So weird.
Some kind. Eric, how was that experience for you working with them?
It was great. Very tiring, because like night shoots suck, especially when you do 4 in a row. And I was so impressed by Kenny, because I remember it was like one of the last days we were shooting, and you could just tell everyone was kind of like brain dead. It was the middle of the night. We're getting towards the end, and like everyone's just kind of like barely moving. And Kenny was like, had to like snap us all out of like our like days, like, and he was doing so much. I was just so impressed by him. He's like, guys, we got to finish this movie. And like, everyone's like, yeah, you're right. It's like almost like we like came alive for a second. It's like, sorry, man. Like, yeah, we were like blacking out essentially just from being exhausted. But Kenny I was just so impressed by that. And then everyone kind of pulled together and we finished it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, and every day at lunch, which I guess would have been about midnight every day, there's this glass table in the dining room, and we would always be behind. Always at lunch, we were always behind. And so Kenny and I would sit down at lunch, and we would have markers, and we would map out the room and how we were going to shoot the rest of the day and how we were going to finish the day. So we did that all 4 days, and that's the only way we got it done. We just had to basically throw out the shot list that we had. And he and I had gotten on Zoom, probably a week straight before we started shooting, and just shot list everything. And we already knew the location. So we had everything really plotted out, but still, 4 days, you get behind. And but we had just had to kind of improvise and finish it up.
So you two are like, if we can do this together, we could probably do other stuff too.
How about 3 days?
Yeah. So you guys do that one. So what happens next chronologically, movie wise, with you guys?
Well, before I'd done that, I did Coffin 2, and then I did this. That's the iPhone movie I did was after Coffin 2. So I did this movie called Charman, and it's about a legend up in Ojai about this guy who's all burned and comes out of the woods and gets people and all that. And it's called Charman. And so me and this other friend of mine, we've been looking to do a project together, and I had something going on that got canceled. And I was like, hey, do you want to go do something? And this was April of 2018. Do you want to go shoot something? And like, how about a found footage movie? Those are easy to do. It's fine if it looks like crap. So we started putting together this outline based on Charman. And they have a bunch of other urban legends up in Ojai. The Ojai Vampire, which also was in the movie.
Are these like real urban legends?
These are real urban legends.
Ojai's an interesting place.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And they actually sell a book there in the bookstore that has all their urban legends. And it's crazy. So we went up there with another guy named Nick, and we improvised 9-page outline for 2.5 days on 2 cell phones and an iPad mini, and came up with this movie called Charman. It's a silly horror comedy. And to this day, that movie has been the lowest budget and the quickest one I've ever shot, and it's made the most money compared to its budget. We signed a deal with Warner Brothers to develop a TV series from it, which got squashed during COVID. But you never know. That's the point, is we went up there and screwed around for 2.5 days, improvised the whole thing. And this movie is still, every quarter I can count on, there comes more money from Charman, more money from Charman. And found footage typically doesn't do well in the foreign market, but it definitely has its rabid fans, So we still do okay with Charman. So that was one of the reasons why, after doing a couple movies with Kenny, I was like, hey, let's go do this other really low budget experimental film, Evil at the Door, which hasn't done as well as Charman. But that's kind of the chronology. Gets us up to Evil at the Door. Then after that, Kenny and I produced a movie that was picked up by Viacom, and that was in November 2020. And we produced that, and it's called Just Swipe. And they premiered on Pluto. It's competitor of Tubi, basically, but Viacom picked that up. What was next? Wolf Mountain, Kenny and I did together. Movie with Danny Trejo and Tobin Bell. We're both in it, and we produced it. I'm gonna have to pull up my IMBD because you think
where can I watch Charman?
You think I'm gonna remember 30 films?
Where can we watch Charman?
So Charman, Tubi, Amazon, Fandango, which used to be Vudu, Fandango. It's out. It's on YouTube as well.
I love that you told that story, because you are right. Like, sometimes it's the things that we're like, we're just gonna go have fun with this. I'm not gonna think about we're just gonna do it.
That's exactly
and that ends up
what
being
it was.
your most successful thing that comes out, where the thing that you think about strategically, and we're gonna get the best this and the best that, and sometimes that works, but
100%. And honestly, it was a real, because I've done that. I've spent so much time trying to make sure this has got to be perfect this way, or this has to be done this way, or one of the mistakes that I feel a lot of young actor filmmakers say to themselves, and I said it many, many times, is this has got to be the one that puts me here or whatever. And then you're putting emphasis on something other than the work. Then your expectation is, all right, well, the work has to do this for me, instead of just focusing on just having fun and doing the work. So yeah, we went and literally, the longest day we shot, I think, was 4 hours. Literally just improvised for 2.5 days, had fun, had a bunch of laughs, threw it together. It doesn't look pretty, but it doesn't matter because it's found footage. It doesn't sound great, but it doesn't matter because it's found footage. And it's done great.
I think Blair Witch, right? Didn't they shoot Blair Witch for his $10,000 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Less than $100,000, probably, whatever it was.
Super low.
And made just tons of money.
Crazy money. Yeah. Crazy money. The actors made zero off of that.
Really?
Did you know that? Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
They still complain about it to this day, as they should. They made zero. Yeah.
Wow. So it was like, hey, just sign this right here. And we're just going to take everything.
We're going to make $200 million off this, but yeah.
But I bet I don't know, do you think they even had an idea that they were going to do that well with it?
No, not at all.
So they probably didn't think it would be.
Not, and and of course, a lot of that was marketing. That was incredibly marketed. Is the way that they approached that it was real, and it's really hard to get away with that today. But it was marketed incredibly well, and it's a great found footage movie.
So you're doing those films, and when did Rebroken come into the mix?
So Rebroken which
is a fantastic film. Thank
you. That was 20. So I have to pull up my IMDb here because I don't even remember these in order. So Rebroken came 2021 that we shot that, and that was Scott Hamm, who's in Evil at the Door. He and I had done, we'd done a couple movies together. We did a movie called The Stay, which actually that was right at the beginning of 2020. I forgot about The Stay. That one's done incredibly well. But we did it in 6 days. There was 5 cast members, 5-person crew, great team. And, that's another great example of a movie that you don't expect to do as well as it did. And it continues to do well. And then Rebroken came along because, the year had gone by, The Stay was taken off, and Scott had another round of investors to come in to do Rebroken. And he asked me about, writing the script, and he pitched the story. And I love a story like The Machinist, just that mind bending. You're not sure ever what's going on until the end. I love those movies.
So you wrote Rebroken.
I wrote Rebroken. Yeah, I wrote Rebroken, produced it, and then play.
You're
play
a great writer, man.
Oh, thank you.
You're really good at it, because I've seen both Rebroken and now you're Before Never. And I love those movies. That kind of that M. Night Shyamalan type feel too, in a way. Like, you think you know what things are, and then at the end you're like, oh my God, that's what this is.
I love it so much, and I never intended to set out to do that, and that's how Coffin is too. It's got a double twist.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
And Coffin 2 has a twist, so there's, but I never intentionally set out to do that. It just kind of naturally starts to happen when I'm writing some of these. And Rebroken, I really love the idea and the concept. I unfortunately only had a very short period of time to write it. I started on July 6th, and we knew Kenny was directing. That was going to be Kenny's directorial debut. And July 6th, and we were rolling on July 25th. So it was like here's a draft. Okay, here's a draft. And it was like it was a pretty intense development process, because there was a very short window of time that Scott had that we could make this movie. And we shot that in, I think, 7 days. It was our total on that. But that was Kenny's directorial debut, and I think it turned out amazing.
Oh, fantastic! And then Tobin's in that one.
Tobin's in that one. Yep. Yeah, and he shot all his stuff in one day. He's in like a good portion of the movie.
Yeah.
But he came and had all his lines, total pro, Never complained once, about how much we were shooting. He was great. Tobin's awesome.
So when you work with like those bigger names like that, I'm sure, do you see why they are in the position they're in? Like when you see him, like you said, he's a pro. Like he comes in and just
him. It's a lot of those old school guys. I remember Ed Begley Jr. We were doing a film, and there's a decent amount of names in it. He comes walking in, immediately walks over to us, puts down his social security card, his SAG card, and his driver's license. And he's like, there you go. If you want to take a picture of them so you have them for your records, for the paperwork, here's some wardrobe I brought if you guys would like those. I mean, who does that? Like, you don't see many, no-name actors who are young doing that at all. But it's the old school guys, those actor and actresses, that's why they have continued to work all these years.
And as you've been telling these stories, this is great because it just reminds you, because like before I moved out this way, like you see the entertainment industry, like go out to LA and be famous and be, right. It's like, as you're talking, like, no, these are jobs and it is work. Sure. This is what keeps people working. You're talking about like just putting together these crews and time frames and writing a script in like, less than a month and having it be effective. Like it just really like paints the picture of like the work that
it's work. Yeah.
It's work out here. Like these are people's jobs and livelihoods. And
it totally is. And the one thing I do enjoy about some of these films as well, but it's so time consuming, is editing. I edited Rebroken, edited Evil at the Door, Before Never with Derek. It's so time consuming. And it's hard work. It take you 3 months, if you're at it every day. Really enjoy it, but you can enjoy a lot of things that are still really, really difficult and really hard work. Which, then you start to see when the hard work starts and who really loves it and who's in it just for like, oh, do we get to go to a party or that kind of stuff.
That right there, what you just said, that's when the real ones stick around,
Yeah. And I was told when I first moved to LA, they're like, hey, if you stick to it, it's usually about 2 years in when people will fall out. Or if you're meant to do it, you'll keep pushing forward. And that's about right, I think. I saw a lot of people about the 2 to 3 year mark. They'd be like, oh yeah, gonna go back to school, gonna go do this, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. Like if you're only in it for the glitz and the glamour, then you probably should do something else.
It's funny too. Like I remember I went to a film screening somewhere, and I had hit the 2 year mark, getting to the 2 year mark in LA, and I was talking to this guy, and I'm like, I've been out here about 2 years now, and he's like, yeah, talk to me at 7. He's like, and really goes, really, it happens at 10.
Yeah.
But now that I've hit the 7 year mark, like I do now see what it's a huge place, but yet it's a small circle, but yet it's still big. It's a weird.
It's an odd town.
It's an odd town. Yeah. Like someone put it to me, like you could like probably in this neighborhood, there's decision makers somewhere.
100%.
The hills aren't far from here, but like you're so close, but yet so far.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah. It really is an odd town. And I think had I not, had my wife and then we had our family, I probably would have gone crazy because, there were certainly lean times, there lean years. And then suddenly you're super busy and then it's lean again. 2023 was pretty lean. It wasn't very busy. So yeah, I suggest a hobby, as something other than entertainment if you want to be in it for the long haul.
And then Final Wager that came after Rebroken.
Yeah. So yeah, Rebroken. We did a bunch of other. I should mention some of these.
Mention whatever ones you want.
My Favorite Girlfriend, Kenny and I did together. Hunt Club, that was shot in Mississippi, and then we went to Texas to shoot Moonrise. That was a Sony film. Then Rebroken came out. Place of Bones. Kenny and I didn't do that one together, but Place of Bones is a really good Western. It's out with Heather Graham. I was a co-producer on that. We shot that at the end of 2022, beginning of 23. Joe Baby's coming out soon. Kenny and I did that in Mississippi. Karma's a Bitch. That's out. Kenny and I produced that. Yeah, Final Wager is getting ready to be rebranded as Christmas Gamble, but it's out now. You can watch it as Final Wager now. But very soon it's going to hit Tubi as Christmas Gamble because it's a Christmas movie.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah, and Kenny and I have done other projects together. I produced a movie recently called Shark Girl, which is super fun. It's out on streaming right now, but yeah, that's a few. And Kenny and I did a little small movie. It's called, you're those Screen Life movies where everything happens on a computer screen. Where like Unfriended, those movies where everything's over a Zoom or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Those kind of movies. They're called Screen Life movies. We did one of those called Confined. That was also during COVID. Did that right after Evil at the Door. That was a lot of fun. Everybody, we shot it through over several states, and everybody was just in their house on Zoom. So that was fun. That's a feature as well. So yeah, it's just some of them bigger budget, some of them small. But it's all about just, continuing to work and finding what works for you. And there was, a lot of experiments in there, like I said, Evil at the Door, Confined, and some others. But you start to see how you like to work and who you like to work with and what works for you.
And that's what I've really picked up on in this conversation with you. You just seem like someone like you don't stop. Like even when something like shutdowns and COVID happened, I was like, all right, how are we going to do this?
And I think that honestly, that probably comes from, I didn't grow up with any wealth at all. Like the opposite. And we were always taught, like, if you want something, you have to work for it, period. You put your head down. You don't complain. Don't complain about your situation or your circumstances. You put your head down, you work, and you keep moving forward. And so that's kind of, without knowing it, what I've applied to every film I've made and every job I do is, yeah, there's going to be days where everybody's complaining and you want to complain, but there will be an end to this at some point. So why not put your head down, do the work, stop complaining, and move on. And so that's kind of what how I've tried to approach everything. And so I have a hard time now just not doing something or not having something to work on. And so that's why, I try to always have something in the works.
Oh, I love it. And a question I wanted to ask you, because it seems like you have a lot of experience probably working with film investors and things like that. Whether it's arts and entertainment, or I hang around the startup tech community a lot, everybody's looking for money. Like every time I go, we're looking for Series 1 or Series 2 or whatever it is. What's your biggest advice for people that are looking for money? Because I'm one of those too. Like, you got to have something to show people too. Like, you're just not go, I have a great idea. Oh, here's a check for $200,000. Like,
right.
Well, can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah.
Like give people advice or what works?
In that advice has changed many times, because my first one was just like, oh, you guys wanted to invest in it. Okay. And I've been on the finance calls for the multi-million-dollar movies, so I know that that's a whole other ball game. But for someone just looking, say you want somebody to finance your first film for $100,000. The biggest thing to do is don't lie, because a lot of people will come in and be like, oh, well, such and such movie made this much on this budget, so this can do that as well. Can it? Yes. Will it? Very likely not. So be honest, because you don't want to get in the situation where you have promised someone and shown them only the films that have made all kinds of money on these no budgets and not tell them the truth that, well, that's because a studio picked them up and threw, $10 million of marketing behind it to make this $200,000 movie turn into a $30 million box office hit. It's because it has the marketing behind it. Don't lie to them. Tell them your plan and what you're going to do with it. And then show them real numbers. Here's what it can do here. Here's what it could do here. These did not do well. And then do your research. Why didn't those do well? Is it because it came out at the wrong time? Was it not marketed properly? But be honest with them and have that conversation with them. And then, of course, with your idea, don't go in and just say, I have an idea and it could be cool and it could be this person and that person. Get a pitch deck together, show them your concept, explain it in terms that they can understand. So say, well, this movie looks like Barbarians, the movie that came out recently. And so we're going to go with this same color palette. The style that we're going to shoot this in is going to be more, handheld. So it's going to look like this trailer right here. Show them all of those things, but just be honest and don't lie to them, because I see so many investor packets. That's another thing I actually have done on the side for a very long time, is help people put together their investment packages and do budgets and schedules and stuff for them. And so many will just underscore, the Blair Witch, but you can't compare a movie that's coming out today to a movie that came out in 1999, which is what's a phenomenon then and certainly would be now. So just be honest and explain all. And if they're smart and they really have the money to throw in, say, look, is this a gamble? Yes, it is a risk. All of these are risks, but here's what we could do. And also, a lot of the times that you're going to these investors, you have a personal relationship with them. Sometimes they'll own a business that you can say, we will put your business name in the movie. This will be the store that they go to is your business. Or, your daughter, I know, does a lot of plays. We can certainly put her in one of these roles. You can do some things like that. But honestly, like I've dealt a lot with investors, but I have not sought financing in years. And I prefer it that way, because when I stopped looking for financing is when I started getting financing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I would spend those lean years when my kids were young, I would spend 3 years on an investor package and, working on the script and trying to get attachments and not getting attachments because you don't have any money, and pitching and pitching and pitching and just not getting anywhere. And you're like, well, we need just $250,000 to make this movie. It's just enough, but not getting investors. But when I stopped doing that and just continued working, like picking up your phone, going and shooting in Ojai for a weekend, that's when people started coming to me. Say, hey, I want to make a movie. I have this much money. Or I have friends who want to put in money. Or how can we do this? And that's how it's worked on, literally like the past 10 plus years, is people just come to me. But that's only because of the work. And so that's where the way I was brought up is, well, you don't have the means. All right, how can we figure out how to do this? Like that relationship movie that we shot back in 2003. Well, we know we have access to a Canon XL1 for free. Those cameras aren't beautiful. They don't make things look great, but we know we got a guy with a boom mic, so we can all go up here and shoot this for nothing in, 4 or 5 days. But things came out of that movie, by us doing it. It was the first movie that I had that was picked up by a company called Netflix at the time. They're still called Netflix, but that's when Netflix only did discs. And so they would pick up indie movies for like 10 grand or something. And they would, mail your DVD. That's back when they were a mail service. But the point is to don't let those limitations keep you from doing it. I have friends who've been working on the same project for over 10 years, putting together package after package, redoing the budget over and over and over, and haven't done a single film during that whole time. And we'll ask these same questions. How do we get it financed? Stop focusing on that one right now then, and go do something that's really small that you can get done. And after that, if you don't have this one financed, do it again. Do another one. And eventually it'll come back around that you can get this one financed. Coffin 2 was a script I had done years ago called Ragdolls. And when I found out we were going to do the sequel to Coffin 2, I changed it, put all those characters from Coffin into that one, and that's what it became. So you never know when it might come back around. But you don't wait for that perfect moment, because it's never going to be perfect. What's the saying that what was ships that wait for perfect winds never sail or something like that.
Oh, I like that.
I think that's the quote.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true, and I did it way too long until I finally just said, all right, I'm just going to go make and do whatever I want. I don't care how bad it looks or how, or if nobody sees it. And it's worked out well.
Well, you establish yourself as that credibility and authority. Give yourself that social proof to make people come to you. And then I couldn't help but think, like in the startup culture too, a lot of them are big on who's your team. I've heard that from other investors. Yeah. They want to know who the players are on the team. And like, as I'm thinking, it's like you and Kenny and everyone you work with, the more work you guys just keep doing and it keeps getting better and better and better now, it's going to be no brainers for people. Like, oh, it's that crew? Yeah. For how much? How much you need?
Yeah.
Like when you guys have put in the work to get to that
put in the work. Yeah. And yes, they may not be, not everyone may be multi-million-dollar movies that we've done. We've done a few of those, but a lot of these are really small movies, but they have something has always come from them. Something good has come from them. And the only way to do that is just to do it. And too many people are perfectionists, which I used to do that to myself as well. Can't go out until it looks like this or has this or sounds like this or has this music. But are you just being a perfectionist for yourself or for everyone else? Because nobody's going to know that you're sitting back here toiling over, well, I got to make sure that, this is perfect, or, well, I don't like that telephone pole in the back, so I'm going to pay somebody $1,000 to erase it. Nobody cares. They do not care. So many times, you'll be on these small, and I've been on these small productions before with people, and, they'll spend time on making sure that there's a light that's hitting a tree 100 yards in the background. Or a massive budget one, and they'll do the same thing, making sure it's hitting this tree way back there in the background. That's only satisfying the cinematographer and the gaffer and no one else. I appreciate that. I love it. And I'm not just picking on them. I'm just saying in general, there's a perfectionism that has to end at some point, and look, I'm not happy with anything I ever do, but I know that I have to let it and put it out there at some point. But that's what stops a lot of people. Well, I have to do this for $500,000. I have to do this for $1 million. I have to have this actor. No, you don't. Like you can do it another way. Well, no, I don't want to do it okay, so that's the difference. You don't want to do it that way, but you can do it the other way. And there's too many people out there that are just sitting on the projects because, they don't have it the way that they want to make it.
That hits home. You're exactly right about that. Like we obsess over these little. And look, there's a line, right, of like, well, look, if we can't improve this, and it's not going to, let's improve
100%.
it. But there are those times where it's like, look, you're the one as the creator obsessing over these minor little things that no one's even going to pay attention to,
which only satisfies you.
Yeah,
and that's it. Again, if that's the way you want to do it that way. But I had to like teach myself not to focus on those things and realize that, look, it's never going to get out there if you nitpick everything, because you could nitpick every frame of a movie and find something wrong with it. Something wrong with the sound, something wrong with the picture, whatever it would be. You can nitpick everything. And that's only doing a disservice to the work because you're not allowing it to ever live and be out there. And like you said, there is a line. Like you do need to do the best you can. It's not mean do shitty work and just throw it out there. But there'll come a time where you got to put it out there. And I mean, that goes with project and development. There's got to come a time where you got to say, all right, let's totally revamp or let's go do something else, because it's 10 years and we're still sitting on this thing.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Kipp, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, it's been
fun. And we'll get Eric. Do you have anything as we're?
I didn't realize you guys made so many movies after Evil Out the Door, because that took so much time for you in post. But then you're making these other ones. How are you able to balance all that and like pay yourself to just survive out here in LA? Yeah. That's incredible.
Cocaine. Just kidding. Kidding. No. So, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. It's and I have not always been great about finding the right balance. So, while you're editing something, might be the next day writing something else and trying to figure out, all right, I'm going to write in the morning and edit in the afternoon. The way that I pay myself now is I get hired to produce movies for other people. Thank God that my bartending days are many, many years behind me now. But that's what I've been able to finally get to, that point where I've done enough work where people will hire me to, like, hey, come produce this movie, produce that movie. Or, hey, can you, I got hired to write a script recently that's set in Thailand. It's a big crocodile feature, but it's all of that came from just continuing to do some sort of work, and so I know that's not going to work for everybody, because not everybody is a producer and not everybody has a certain amount of credits to where they can start getting hired to be a producer. And, back in the day when I first started out, I listened to some wrong advice, but also I believe this, that I refused to take any jobs that was on a film set that wasn't as an actor, or, right, because that's what I am first, an actor, then a writer. I wasn't going to do it. And no, I don't want to go and be a PA over there, because then I get stuck as being the guy who's the PA. There is a little truth to that. However, you are now in a position where you're rubbing elbows with the right people. And so I resisted that. I had opportunities to start off like mailroom at agencies and studios. I said no every time. I would encourage people to do that, because you can still support yourself and live. And now you also have opportunities where I know crew members who, are like grips, or, in hair and makeup department, and they're SAG, they're actors. And they're like, oh, we need somebody to be the store clerk. And, what are we going to do? I guess we can put an extra there. Well, so-and-so's SAG. They can just jump in there. Oh, great. And then she can just say, oh, thank you. There's a line. Boom. You have a day rate. I've seen that happen several times on, multi-million-dollar films. So it does happen. But there is a little truth to, like,
where you put your energy is kind of what you become. Yeah,
exactly. Where you put your energy, but you also have to make a living, because when I was bartending, it was hard to focus on any of this stuff too, because you're working late nights, you're exhausted the next day. But now that I've gotten to the point where, and that's basically what happened too, I made a film and I was like, all right, I'm quitting bartending. I'm not gonna go back, and I didn't go back, and that kind of forced me to just keep doing more work, and then got hired here, got hired there. And that's how it's worked out.
Just remarkable. You're able to do all that, fulfill those duties while still doing yours and planning for the next one.
It's a balance. It's a tough
beautiful
balance.
And family on top of that. Holy shit. Very
inspiring.
impressive. Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
Well, and I'm 84 years old now.
Yeah.
So it took a long time. Yeah. And it's, I never really sit and think about it until people ask me these questions like this. Because it's always just,
because you're always working,
and never think about like sitting back and complaining, or, it's just always about, look, I got to keep doing something.
And it works itself out. You just keep going.
That's kind of it. It works itself out, and it may take a long time, but how dedicated are you, and how much do you love it? How long are you willing to wait? Because it will happen if you keep at it enough.
And it seems like too, you're very humble, and you're very good at putting that ego aside. Like when you have success, like Coffin and things.
Don't look me in the eye when you say that. No, just kidding.
And like Charman and things like that, stuff that you could say, well, I've already done this, so why would I do anything that's below that, or why would I help them with their thing? To be like, okay, you're gonna pay me to do this, I'll do it. But still,
I get it. Yeah,
building your own individual projects, and there is a dance to that, and.
Yeah, and it's not easy to figure out.
Yeah,
that dance.
But LA, my whole philosophy now is like, just make sure that rent's paid. Like, let's get that rent paid, and we do what we can to get that rent paid. And then, all right, we buy time.
Right. That's a big one.
Got 2 weeks I can work on this project over here. Oh, got to go work more. Got to go.
Right. I mean, you've got a great thing going here. This is awesome what you're doing. How many episodes are you in now?
You are 137.
137. Wow.
Yeah, 137. Nice. So, yeah, and this is one of those just working with what we got type of thing. It's like, I would love to have a studio of my own, but it's like, well, I got an apartment. I can make this work. Let's make this work. A lot of people think we're shooting in a studio and they come here, oh, this is your apartment? I'm like, yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I relate to a lot of what you're saying, even with this project. Yeah, you're right. If you are doing things for accolades or to get famous or that, you will be phased out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because production, whether it's film production, media production, and not even including like distribution, trying to get this out there, it is so much work.
So much work. And if I can add one other little thing too, like when you come in and like you get into acting class and you're working, you're doing the acting work, there's a lot of BS that's sold to you. And I'm not here to say anything bad about acting class. I do love acting classes. But there's a lot of BS sometimes that's thrown at you in there by teachers, whatever their motivation is, whatever their lack of own success is, or whatever that may be, where, they will tell, I saw it with any female with red hair should only play Julia Roberts roles, or, this person should only play Russell Crowe roles because he has the same haircut. So you would get those sort of things, or then they would say, well, you need to go and you need to have this kind of look. You need to dress this certain way. And I started recognizing that in a few acting classes, that now you're dressing a certain way, combing your hair a certain way, going after certain roles that may not actually be your type, but just because you have the same hair color. And now you're doing that only to impress your teacher. And then you start to believe those things. Like, okay, well, I've got to do this a certain way because that's how my teacher did it in the 70s and 80s. But things evolve, things change. Like the way that we did things when I came out here in 99 are way different than how things are done now. And they were way different 10 years ago. They were different 20 years ago. So it is something that is difficult to navigate when you're first starting out. So that's my advice, is just do the work and don't get caught up in all the bullshit. Just do the work and keep doing something. And it will, like Eric said, things will start to work themselves out given time.
Yeah,
for sure.
No. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about? And in particular,
I don't think so.
I was going to ask you what's next.
Any stock tips? Any hot stock tips?
No, but that's a whole. We can go complete left field if we want on that one.
God,
That's
right. I got 3 kids and 2 still in college. I can't afford stocks. What are you talking about?
Well, I did see. Now, I will note I am not an economic expert, tariff expert of any kind, but you hear one camp that's like, oh, it's going to be the best time to buy more than ever because everything's going to crash. I'm like, this is my personal take. I hate it when I hear that, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but when everything crashes, that means a lot of people are going to lose a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Super wealthy. It doesn't matter because they're okay. Yeah, it takes a dip. We just come in, throw everything at it. But no, I don't know who's going to hit big.
Don't ask me. I'm not good with all that stuff.
I did have a question though to ask you as we're rounding out of here. Future of the industry, because we have. Okay, it's interesting you being this episode because we've had a lot happen over the past year and a half, 2 years. So you had the COVID thing happen. We've had strikes. We have AI now. You have people leaving Los Angeles now.
Yeah.
Future of the film and acting industry, and maybe more in particular, Hollywood in general. Where do you see everything going?
That is such a complicated question to answer. I mean, honestly, I'm a little fearful. And it's more of the general public's, which is the majority of the world, of lack of interest in films. And, TV's doing what TV's doing, but not all of them are doing as well as they used to do. And as people move more to getting their entertainment from TikTok or scrolling through Instagram, it's a little frightening. So I'm not exactly sure where that's going to go. I think actors are fairly safe from AI for now. It's scary good now how it's gotten in just like the past few months, how good it's gotten. I think writers are okay as well, because I played around just to see what AI would do, and it's it doesn't have heart, it doesn't have a soul. But as far as like the future of the industry from that, like as studios start to scale down, like I honestly still see them probably doing the $200 million gamble, because they know they're more likely to make $700 million off of that, as opposed to doing 10 of these $20 million movies that might just make zero. And that's the scary part, where that used to be in the 90s and even 2000. Like, you would go to a movie. This is a one-off $30 million movie. Had a great time. It makes $100 million at the box office and done. Those days are long gone, and I don't think those are coming back. And I wish they would, but I think that the studios are going to keep gambling on these really big films. And in the meantime, what that has done is it has destroyed the middle class of films. So those, like, even as low as like 2 million, upwards of like 20 million to 30 million, it's starting to be a no man's land in there. And I know what some of those are making. They're not making money. They're losing money. And that way you have now your low budget filmmakers, your indie filmmakers who are coming in and making these really low budget movies. Those are kind of getting squashed too, because it's so saturated, and everything, the emphasis by the studios is put on the top films. So it's a really tough time right now. Really tough. So I don't know where it's going to go. There's always some sort of evolution. It's happened many, many times in this industry. And I wish I knew where it was going to go, but something is going to break. We've been saying for like 2 years now, like, well, it's stay alive to 25, and then 24 is something different. But it hasn't shaped up just yet. So I'm hoping here in the next year or two. It usually seems to take about 5 years for these things to totally evolve, but I'm just not sure what that's going to be, and I see the studios probably still making their gambles on the big ones, and maybe trying to pick up some smaller budget ones again, like they did in the 90s, because that's what kind of started getting things upside down. It goes all the way back to then, when they started picking up those films and realizing how much money they can make off of those. And then they started trying to make them on their own. And then they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and not making as money. And then they're like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. So hopefully something will come around. We'll see.
So we got to make either Avengers Endgame or
Yes.
Blair Witch.
Or Blair Witch.
There's no in between.
No in between.
So like the rom-coms, like, because those were so popular. Those are probably those 20, 30 million ones you're talking about.
And they still pop up here and there,
Yeah.
but not like they used to be. You could count on one every weekend at the box office back in the day.
Matthew McConaughey, when he was doing that whole thing, was in one every other.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's a very unique perspective. And no, I appreciate you sharing everything that you've shared here.
Absolutely.
Before we get out of here, where can people find you online? Where can they look you up? Any of your movies? Get a hold of you if they want to work with you in any capacity?
Sure.
Where should they go?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. You just search my name, Kipp Tribble. It's 2 P's and 2 B's. And Instagram, I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm on Blue Sky. Same thing. Just search my name, Kipp Tribble. And don't do as much on Facebook, but when I post to Instagram, it hits Facebook as well. And you can message me. I don't always get to my messages very quickly, but you can message me on there if you need to.
Okay, great. And congrats again on Before
Thank
Never.
you.
It's incredible.
Appreciate it.
When it's available, people need to go see this. Before I give you the last word here, what's next for you?
I did another found footage movie last summer with my buddy Dan, who was EP on Before Never. We did that last year. I'm editing that right now. And then looks like I'm heading to Mississippi at the end of the summer to produce a movie. So I can't say too much about it yet, but it's a pretty good size one. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congrats. And Kipp, I always give the guests the last word. It can be as short or as long as you want, deep or as shallow as you want. How do you want to end this podcast?
Just keep working. Keep doing the work.
Kipp, thank you so much. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast, and give us a follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you soon.